So, has it ever dawned to you that Stunky's chin looks like a pair of... Okay, we're not gonna go there. Anyways, welcome to the King of Charmander's YouTube channel, and today we will be analyzing not the regular one, but Shadow Stunky, and exactly why this thing is actually pretty dang good for the Little Cup. So Stunky is a really cute and adorable, and it's adorable, okay? It's a poison dark type. With that poison dark type, it allows it to basically like resist a few things, and it has a very interesting like resistance pool. As you see here, Stunky's only weakness is ground. And because of that, it makes it there's not a lot of things in the Little Cup that are going to threaten you with like ground types, unless it's like Mud Slap. I'll go over that like on another video, but like you're not going to see a lot of things that probably will reach for the ground and kill you. I mean, you may or may not, but either way, Stunky is a monster in the Little Cup. So as you see, Stunky's greatest strength is that it sports a ton of resistances. You resist Hex, you resist those sucker punches / bites and everything else. You also resist those seed bombs and grass knots from Cottony, fellow poison types like Poison Jab, and you also resist the confusions from Bronzor. Stunky's greatest role is the fact that it actually takes out Bronzor with its mighty teeth that you apparently cannot see on its face right now, but you know, we'll get there. Anyways, Stunky, as I mentioned, its moveset has Bite, Sludge Bomb, Crunch, and Flamethrower. Very versatile and very interesting, because someone mentioned to me, like, if you run Flamethrower, you can actually cover a few things. I don't know if you want Sludge Bomb more, though, but, like, with Flamethrower, it's really interesting. Very, very interesting Pokemon to use in the Little Cup. The only thing about Shadow Stunky that might be a little difficult is it's hard to find. Yes, it's easy. In a sense, it's easy to find, but in the state of the world right now, you're not exactly going to walk outside, go to a rocket stop, and say, like, hey, that's a Shadow Stunky. No, seriously, it's going to be... If you don't have one already, it's a little difficult to find. The saving grace is it's not that expensive to power up. Compared to a lot of other things in the Little Cup, even if it is a Shadow, maxing out around level 16 and 15, that's not bad. The second move might cost you a little bit, but as you see, it doesn't take a lot to power up to level 15. So it's not... When you catch, yeah, it's not going to be that bad. It won't be that bad as far as powering it up. So let's take a look at the rankings and just exactly where Shadow Stunky is best in the Little Cup. Alright, so here's the Little Cup rankings, and as you see here, this is where Shadow Stunky, the regular one's actually pretty decent as well, number 27, but the key highlight here is really the Shadow one, because that Shadow damage is really what makes Stunky shine. As you see here, best used in the lead or the switch. Not very good in the closer because Stunky isn't the thickest boy since sliced bread, but you know what? It does very well for the Little Cup. As you see here, Stunky, if we run it in the lead, Stunky ranks at number 2. Beating things such as Bronzor, Wynot, Alolan, Sandslash, fellow fire types. So the thing about Stunky and what makes it really interesting is it actually breaks the Bronzor Wynot core. So the Bronzor Wynot core actually is threatened by Stunky. Now the thing about this is that these ratings aren't very high. For example, if we look up and pair up Wynot and you run the sim, if you look at the end of it, you're left with 17 HP, so whatever comes in can farm you down. So just be careful. There's scenarios here where, like, as you see here, you'll still have it. Yeah, you can get farmed down, and they'll be able to fire fast charge move at you if they have enough energy. So these aren't horrible ratings. So yes, you do beat them. However, just be very conscious that, like, if you do beat them, you are susceptible to being farmed down, etc. So just keep that in mind. And the thing about Shadow Stunky that also limits it is it also weak to a lot of things. Cottony, Dano, and Shelmet are the 3 most notable ones. Shelmet is an incredible charger. Charges very fast. It will kill you a lot. Dano is also one of the top 3 Pokemon, and it, as you see here, Dano just absolutely chunks you. And not only that, it does resist your bite. So if you get a Dano, it's going to really suck. And ironically, even though you are a poison type, because you're not using Poison Jab, Cottony absolutely destroys your soul. So those are there, even though you do break the core of Bronzor, why not? There are some limitations for Stunky just because there's a lot of other picks that can take it on. Like I said, best in the lead and as the switch. As you see, Stunky loses its power when it's in the closer. It still beats the Bronzor Wynot core. However, that's only in even scenarios. If these two have shields, then you're in trouble. But other than that, as you see here, it doesn't have any key losses in the closer other than that. Now, best used as a switch, if otherwise. As you see, it's in the top 10. It beats things like Bronzor, Shadow. I don't know why Shadow is super relevant, but we'll find out later. You beat Drifloon, Lileep, and Eevee. Now, your key losses, Cottony obviously is the biggest one. So is Dano. You have Nosepass, Igglybuff, and Shelmet. Shelmet, Cottony, and Dano seem to be the ones. But like I said, Stunky's still very strong. In the lead and the switch, that's where Stunky is the best. You don't want Stunky in the closer just because since it does lose defense because of the shadow buff, it's not very good in a closing scenario. You can get you can that's why it's like, yeah. Just try to don't use it in the closer. That's it. Just don't use it in the closer. Alright, so this is the most interesting part of this video. Stunky's Matrix. Stunky isn't the thickest thing in the world, but it does a great deal with shadow damage. So you want Bite. Okay, let me fix this. Okay, yeah, you want Bite. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Poison Jab or anything like that. It only sports Bite, but you want Bite anyways because Scratch is really bad and Bite gives you that same type attack bonus. Anyways, we run the 2 shield, and in the 2 shield, you beat Bronzor. So this is its biggest strength, is that in the 2 shield, you beat Bronzor and Wynot. However, like I mentioned before, you are susceptible to being farmed down after you beat these two. So just be very careful. Because Stunky in the closer scenario and in lower shield scenarios isn't super good. That's where Stunky, like, falls. As you see here, it does lose against Cottony, so be very careful. Cottony walls it really hard because it does Cottony resists your bites. You also lose against Shelmet, and Shelmet comes out of this matchup with a healthy dose of energy because Shelmet's a very spammy Pokemon. So after you lose, as you see here, Shelmet just, well, actually, never mind. I'm wrong, actually. You don't leave with a bunch of energy. You actually are able to farm down Shelmet. However, as you look here, you do use both of your shields. So Shelmet only needs to invest in 1 shield, and that's what makes it really bad. So you are at a huge disadvantage against Shelmet, and like I mentioned against Cottony, you just get absolutely destroyed. So just stay away from both of those. Switch out. Do not get locked into either one of them. Now, you do beat Barboach, you do beat Lickitung, Seal, Vulpix, you have a ton of them. You also beat Purrloin. That 666 rating is pretty interesting. Now, like I mentioned, Stunky is only weak to ground types, which is really interesting because you beat Barboach because it has Mudshot and Mud Bomb. You still beat Barboach. Now, you're going to lose against Cubone. Anything that has Mud Slap will hurt a lot, so you're going to lose against Cubone, and you'll lose against other Mud Slap users. Another example is probably Alolan Diglett. We'll go over that later. So as you see in the 2 shield, Stunky is very powerful. That's why it's one of the top leads in the Little Cup. Just be careful of Dano, because Danos are going to be there's going to be a lot of Danos, and Dano is very powerful in this cup. So just be very wary of Dano. Now that's the 2 shield. Again, best used in the switch and the lead. So as you see, if you switch into any of these, you're in a very good position. But like I mentioned, even though you beat Wynot and Bronzor, be very careful, especially against Shelmet, because Shelmet only has to expend 1 shield, while you must use 2 or you die. Now on the 1 shield, that's where things get interesting. Remember when I mentioned that Stunky is not the thickest thing since sliced bread? This is where it falls. When you take away when you put it in the 1 shield, it loses against a lot of things in the meta. This is where Wooper, Barboach, Lickitung, and Seal go to town against our poor little friend here, Shadow Stunky. You also start losing against Purrloin. Of course, Cubone beats you, but you even lose against a Feint Attack Igglybuff. That's because Wild Charge literally ends your life. As you see here, if it does hit as you see, double Wild Charge, and it's GG's. Unfortunately, because 1 Wild Charge does 89 damage, and unfortunately, because you do lose that defense, you are going to get 1 shot. Well, you're gonna get, well, yeah, I'll 1 shot you after you give your shield, because you're gonna have to give your shield or you die anyway. So That's the thing against Igglybuff. That's what makes it really interesting to use. You still beat Turtwig, you'll still beat Turtwig, you'll still beat Munchlax, Drifloon, just because Munchlax don't do much against you. But as you see in the one shield, when Stunky starts losing shields, that's when it gets dangerous. Now in the closer is Stunky's worst position. Shadow Stunky does not do well in the closer. You still beat Wynaut and Bronzor, however, as you see, you use against a slew of Pokemon. You even start losing against Turtwig, Munchlax, and Hoot. You only pick up matchups against very strong Pokemon, like Shadow Vulpix, also Drifloon, just because you do resist those hexes, and Wynaut and Bronzor. You only have 4 positive matchups out of the top 20. That's kind of bad. So if you don't get that Bronzor and Wynaut in the back, it's not super great. Now, if you give Stunky shields, which is kind of... It's going to be really interesting, because if you put Stunky in the back, which, like, Stunky in the back with a shield, this is going to be a little rare, because Stunky, even with a shield, isn't super, like, oppressive. As you see, you still lose against fast-charging Mons, such as Wooper and Barboach and Seal. Wynaut? You do beat Wynaut and Bronzor, so that's a plus. However, as you see, there are some matches, even up a shield, you can lose against, including Cottony. Now, that's including Cottony, and you'll beat the majority of the other men. Now, up 2 shields, Munchlax is Stunky is very interesting. Up 2 shields, you still have some hard losses. You will lose against Dano. So Dano beats you in every scenario. Cottony also beats you in every scenario. So even if you put Stunky in the back with 2 shields, you will still lose against those matchups. You do have a very strong showing against other matchups. However, you still lose against Cubone, ironically, just because of that Mud Slap damage. There's never a scenario where you actually beat anything with Mud Slap. This also makes Alolan Diglett a little dangerous, because Alolan Diglett can also come and wreck your soul with Mud Slap. So anything with Mud Slap, and as you see, these Dano and Cottony, I can expect to see run around too, so just be very careful. Now, here's a little thing that I do with things that aren't, like, super meta, because Stunky Shadow isn't a super good anti-meta pick just because of you see here. It's very dangerous to play. So if you are down shields, and your opponent's up shields, you will lose against almost the entire meta except Drifloon and Vulpix. Down 2 shields, you will lose against everything but Drifloon and Vulpix. So once Stunky, without shields, Stunky, unless you're facing a Shadow Vulpix or a Drifloon, you're not going to have a great time. That's what makes Stunky very dangerous, because a lot of things that just, all you have to do, even you see Bronzor and Wynaut even beat you. So if they leave their Bronzor and Wynaut in the back with 1 shield, you will lose against them. That's what makes Stunky kinda, it does shred through, I want to give it a really great rating, but the problem with Stunky is, in summary, it's good in a sense, but in all honesty, compared to something like Cottony, it's not the greatest thing in the world. Stunky is very powerful in lead, like I said. However, you need shields. You need to give it shields, or it loses against a lot of things. That's the problem. Having to need shields to back it up makes it kind of bad, because yes, you do beat a lot of the meta, but you don't have a lot of coverage. Even with Sludge Bomb, as you see here, even with Flamethrower, your coverage doesn't change. See, if the better part is, if Stunky had something like Poison Jab, it would be a lot better. Unfortunately, it does not have anything like that. Stunky is very strong against Bronzor, Wynaut. It is a core breaker. However, the fact that you need to give it shields to make it really safe is a problem. As you see here, everything in the bulk, even if you pair it with, like, Bronzor, it's still gonna have, like, F bulk. Just because you're not going to bait a lot with shields, so there's not going to be a lot of baiting. So that's why bulk is F at all times. There's not going to be a lot of baiting. Everything's just going to kill each other, so just be very careful. So as you see, you have a very good matchup against a lot of the meta. You beat Bronzor, you beat Wynaut if you have shields. Other than that, you do very strongly against some of the meta. That's if you have shields. I think that's the giant problem here. You do have some very key matchups, but I don't think you're gonna see a lot of Vulpix, Chinchou, Hoot, Drifloon, Munchlax, and Darumaka. Those are hard to obtain, and they're not worth powering up compared to the top 3. So just be very careful. I give it, if I had to give Shadow Stunky something, I would give it probably a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, I'm going to be nice. Now, the reason I'm giving it a 6 out of 10, as you see, is just because there are better choices out there, and Stunky needs shields to be effective. Once it loses shields, Stunky starts crashing, and there's a lot of things in this meta that will chunk you. For example, if you do lead with Stunky and you do lose the lead, like if you do get a Dano in the lead, and you have to realign, if you leave it in the back with shields, it still loses against a lot of the meta, especially if your opponent is able to get shield advantage over you in the closer. Because as you saw in a lot of the 1-0 scenarios, in the 0-1s, you will lose against many matchups if your opponent has a shield. As you see, paired with Bronzor, that's probably the best one. You always want to see, like, pair everything with Bronzor, just because Bronzor is very forgiving. As you see, very good coverage. This core is very good. The problem is both of you will lose against Dano. But as you see, Bronzor is able to cover a lot of Stunky's weaknesses. So you get double coverage against a lot of things, and it gives you a lot of play. However, the potential threats, another reason why that Stunky belongs in a 6, it doesn't completely cover Bronzor, or even if you put Wynot in there. As you see here, you will both lose to Dano and Purrloin. Even if you put, I would say a better pairing for this squad would definitely be Wynot. If you wanted to put something meta with it, Wynot does feature, well, kind of, the problem is if you put Wynot with Stunky, here's what happens. Now, everything's pretty good. Unfortunately, not as safe as normal, just because there's some matchups that do beat you. Just because, if you look over here, Cottony will wreck your soul. Ironically, because it's poison and it's dark, you don't resist charms. It actually does neutral damage. With its bulk, or with its defense stat, you're going to get charmed down fast. Like I mentioned, these are all very strong matchups against the poor Stunky. Is there a better poison out there? Maybe. It's just not worth it. I'd give it a higher rating. It does break the Bronzor Wynot core. However, the fact that it needs shields to function effectively kind of makes it really bad. Because even though this isn't RPS meta, there are some strategies out there where you can leave it in the closer. And there are some matchups, even if you give Stunky shield advantage, like the 1-0s, you still will lose those matchups. It's also expensive, like not super expensive compared to a lot of other mons. But it's not a good budget pick either. Shadow Pokemon aren't forgiving when it comes to Stardust, and at the same time, you can evolve your Stunky to make it into a stun tank to use for Great League, so it does have the issue with that. That's why I rate it at a 6. But as you see here, we went over all of Stunky's pros and weaknesses, and it's good if you play it well, but you need to give it shields. It needs shields to operate effectively. Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful... I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Shadow Stunky is still really good. Don't get me wrong. It takes some skill to play. However, if you are able to play it well, you will do well in the Little Cup. You have a great day, guys. Please like and sub. I will see you in the next video.